James was the new night shift guard at the Amazon warehouse in Orland, California. He was 40 and had recently come out of jail. He was rehabilitated by the Welfare Association, and to start a new clean life, he was sent to Orlando and was given this job. It was the first day of his job, and it was pretty simple to sit around the checkpoint and check the ID proof of all the night shift employees when they enter, and then later lock up the warehouse by 5 in the morning and hand out the keys to the morning guard. The first day or in this case, the first evening of his work was a bit overwhelming for him because all of the new people he was greeting, and it was the first time he was being held responsible for something important. The evening started quite hectic for him as he was trying to learn the correct way to scan the people. Because of that, certain confusion was created when some of the employees weren't getting scanned properly due to the malfunctioning scanner. He had to check every employee personally, and thus creating a little bit of confusion around. After the last employee had checked in, James closed the door of the facility and stood on guard at the checkpoint. The supervisor came in a bit later and told him to relax. He said, "Relax, James. You don't have to be on a lookout for anything. Nothing ever happens here." After explaining him all the work, the supervisor left and told James to go and get some coffee for himself, telling him that he didn't want him to doze off on the very first day there. He went to get the coffee, and then sat in his security post and started sipping the coffee and recounting all the times he spent in prison and the trauma he faced associated with it. He was wrongfully convicted for a crime that he never did. The first day was spent retrospecting about the time he could have spent away from prison, building a real life with much better jobs, and maybe a chance that he could have found a passion for himself and be doing what he loves, instead of what he was doing right now. The next few hours passed by, and he managed to have a chaos-free end to his night. As soon as he handed over the keys to the guard, he left the place, and straight away went to an early opening diner to have a decent breakfast. He ordered a heavy breakfast and went to his room, and dropped down on his bed and slept for the next few hours. He woke up and found the time for the evening shift was near. He got ready and packed himself a thermos full of black coffee and went on to the job. Soon he got used to the routine, and everything became clear, and he got very good at his job. After working for a month at that place, he knew everyone who worked there, and he went on to build a healthy and friendly relationship with all the employees, and even knew everyone's name. At least 70 employees were working the night shift. Due to his friendly nature, the supervisor was even impressed and brought in a coffee machine so he doesn't have to carry a thermos every time. Many months passed in peace and with no accidents. James was now loved by everyone and became everyone's favorite guard. He used to hand out coffees to the workers and even help them do some work. Some of the workers even called him at their houses for parties and game nights. James was really happy to have his social life back and finally felt like he belonged somewhere. He was enjoying the newfound quiet, but one thing he didn't know was that the quiet that he very much enjoyed was just the quiet one witnessed before the storm. Something happened in the next few weeks that changed his life forever. James did the routine as he did always and left for work. He reached the place, and a few minutes later, the employees started coming in. And then, after all the employees were settled in, he decided to stand by the guard, realizing that one of the employees had still not been there. The supervisor told him to not stand guard since the employee had called in sick 3 days ago and will not arrive anytime soon. James was at ease now and went back to brew himself another cup of hot black coffee and get some paperwork done. The employees and the supervisor were inside while James was outside standing guard. For a while there, he kept on looking at the distance, and soon he found a human figure approaching the facility. He couldn't make it as to who the figure was, but it seemed like it was the employee that called in sick. So he called out the name in hopes that he might get a response. But the figure didn't respond. and soon it disappeared in the distance. He told his supervisor about what had happened, but the supervisor refused to acknowledge it and told him that the employee himself called in and said that he might be spending the next few days in the hospital because of the sickness. So he let the matter go and went on with his usual routine. The hours had passed, and now that all the employees were gone and that warehouse was locked, he took the key and decided to lock up the place and hand it over to the morning guard. He saw that the same figure was again lurking around. He tried to call out, but no luck came to him. So he went back thinking maybe he isn't getting any sleep. He headed back home and went on to sleep for hours. He woke up all refreshed and decided to visit the employee before he leaves for the warehouse. He went to his place and knocked, but no one answered, and the neighbor came out and informed the guard that even he hadn't seen him in days now. He went back to the warehouse, realizing that maybe the employee is facing some serious health problems. He did his job as usual and cross-checked all of them. As he was sitting and sipping the coffee, he realized the same figure was back again, and this time, he could see that it was in fact the same missing employee. He got closer, and now the guards saw him in clear sight and saw that his head was all bust open. He was injured, and he was limping towards the guard. The guard saw him and was sicklily worried. He went running towards the warehouse and knocked at the door. The supervisor slightly opened the door and asked him what was the matter. He told everything to the supervisor, and the supervisor hurried in worry. As soon as they were at the gate, the employee was gone. There was no one. This made the supervisor angry and issued James a warning. He told him to let it go and just relax, otherwise he will have to dock him a leave. James took it very seriously and apologized to the supervisor. He thought that there was something wrong with him. This started to happen so frequently that he stopped telling the supervisor anything. He thought he was hallucinating too much. He locked up the warehouse at the end of the shift and handed over the key to the morning guard. He started walking toward the diner to get the breakfast, and while he was walking along the road alone, it was around 4:45, earlier than usual. He saw a lean figure limping beside him. It was the same employee. His head was burst open and he was wailing. James was taken aback and kept on the eye contact while maintaining the silence. The employee said, "Help me, please, James. Check the third container in the second unit." As James was writing it down in his little diary, he looked up and saw the employee was already gone. The next day, he decided to check on the container when everyone was gone. He waited for everyone to leave and then went on to check the container out. He went onto the unit and was shocked to see human organs refrigerated in the unit. He then went on to check the call log and found that the employee never called anyone. He decided to inform the authorities, but as he was walking out of the warehouse, he saw the supervisor was standing right over him, and he confronted the supervisor, to which the supervisor told him to shut his mouth, and he can get a cut in the profits if he helps out. James refused and pushed him away to run out of the warehouse. One of the employees that invited James over for dinner saw that James was running alone and decided to give him a ride. James was panicking. He asked James what's the matter. James told him everything, and then the employee told him that he shouldn't go to the authorities straight away without proof, as he could become their suspect because of the record. James agreed and spent the entire morning away from his room. He decided to visit the missing employee, and as soon as he reached the door, he decided to open it up by force. Upon opening it, he saw that the body of the missing employee was lying clawed on the floor. His legs were broken and head busted open. He informed the police about it, and also informed the neighbor, James, left the scene, and decided to confront the supervisor in front of everyone. He had already informed the police about the organ trafficking and was now waiting at the gates of the warehouse. All the employees came in and checked in, and the supervisor arrived and checked in too. They both were staring at each other intensely. The guard walked into the warehouse with every employee and gathered them all to the second unit where all the trafficked organs were preserved. He went on to tell everyone that it was the supervisor who was doing it, and the missing employee found it out, so the supervisor killed him. Everyone was shocked. James was relieved that people knew now. The supervisor stopped and said, "I know that does the trafficking, but it wasn't me who killed the guy." He looked at each employee and then, with all the enthusiasm, said, "We all did." The rest of the employees started cheering, and James was in complete shock. He couldn't understand what was happening. As it turns out, every one of the employees was in on the illegal business, even the missing employee that got murdered. The supervisor said, "That greedy gut bastard, we all get our fair share. So what's it going to be, James? You can join us and help us, and we will give you your fair share. After all, we do love you." James looked around, and everyone looked like they wanted him to join them. James was already in a state of shock, and then it changed into anger. And then he said that he would never join them. He was convicted for a crime he never did, and he would never join the criminals, and also that he already informed the authorities. Everyone around him suddenly got hostile, and they decided to hold him down. James tried to escape, but they all caught him and lynched him to death. The police did arrive, but the supervisor managed to keep it all under control. They were never caught, and James died without seeking any justice for the missing employee or him. They say his spirit still roams the halls of what is now an abandoned warehouse in search of justice. The supervisor was killed in a bizarre accident a few months after the secret murder of James, and the rest of the 69 employees were all killed through the year in the same bizarre way. Their heads busted open, and legs were broken. Fridays are the worst days for the deliveries. All sorts of weird packages are delivered on Friday. It's the day before the weekend, and the packages are most people satisfying their weird urges through ordering the creepiest weird things online. Ever since the virus made people all go in, what has gotten out are the most creep urges of people. We get all sorts of orders because we are linked through many portals to be in Amazon or others, and there's a wide variety of packages that come through. Only last Friday, I had to deliver a large box of artificial tongs to an old lady in an apartment downtown. I don't know why, and I would even ask them. Most of the time when I'm delivering packages like these, I try not to make eye contact or strike a conversation, because only God knows what goes on behind the doors of these weird people, and I don't want to find out. So I keep it all strictly business on Fridays. This Friday started heavy. A lot of weird packages came through too, so I just went on to deliver them first, to get over with the weird packages before afternoon. I keep the normally sensible packages for the evening because, like everyone else, I want to start my weekend with some sanity and sensible things rather than just weird and creepy deliveries. The mornings are the tough ones to get through on Fridays due to this, so I started my route and started with the usual weird packages. One of them had snake eyeballs from China. Now it could have been some sort of candy because that is what the package was marked as. The very next delivery was a bag full of last cloth the people wore before they died. I can count you all the weird packages I delivered, and everyone will be weirder than the first one. It took me around 4 hours to deliver all of them, so my afternoon went easy. Now that the weird packages were gone, all I had was boring, mundane packages that I could easily deliver. Stuff like books, toys, and portable coffee tables. So I took a little break, and then went on to finish the deliveries. Friday was surprisingly too easy. Today, all the packages were delivered without any confrontation or returns, and even the weird packages were delivered, and none to be ordered to return. So Friday this time was a good old slow day. Only 2 packages were left to be delivered. My partner told me to deliver them tomorrow instead of today, because it was getting too late. But I honestly did not want to waste my weekend doing a small 2-package run. I wanted my weekend free, so I could have some fun with my family. I was going to take my daughter to buy her a keyboard. She loved playing keyboard, and she was good at it too. I told my friend that I could deliver the packages on my own, and told him to complete his paperwork for the day and leave. I dropped him at the storage unit, and took the truck to deliver the second last package. The address to this package brought me to a really big house. I called in, and I was surprised. Out came a man in a bad shape, and he looks at me and asks for the package. The package was arriving from Japan. This man was not Japanese though, he was white, and he seemed a lot depressed. I wasn't willing to make any conversation, but the accidental eye contact made him start. He asked me my name, and it was written on the badge I was wearing. I pointed him toward the badge, and he looked at it and said, "Martin, how are you, Martin? Because I am not fine. Come on in, let me get you something to drink." Keeping my word on strictly business, I politely declined. And then the man brought out a wad of cash and said, "Come on, Martin. I think you could use some extra cash for the weekend tomorrow. Just one drink, and then you can leave." I was taken aback by the amount of cash he was holding. It was more than $1,000. I could have bought my daughter an actual piano instead of a keyboard. So I went in for one drink. As soon as I went, the guy took me to his bar and passed me a bottle of beer and took the package and started opening it up. He poured some scotch into a glass and started sipping it as his glass was half empty. And then he started telling me how he made all of his money and asked me if I would like to make money too. And as anyone would say, I said yes. He started talking about his businesses and all the things that he owned. But then he asked me if I wanted to be part of his business. I politely declined, because I barely knew this man. He got back to the bar and put his glass down and started unpacking the package I brought him. It was a knife. He told me that he imported this knife from Romania. I was about to leave when he proposed to me something that completely made me furious. As I was walking out, he put a big bag full of cash in front of me and said, "This could all be yours, if you let me drink just a little bit of your blood." "Are you out of your goddamn mind? I'm getting the hell out of here," I said. Now as I was leaving, he persuaded me to not go and said, "It's Renfield syndrome. In this syndrome, people like to drink human blood, like vampirism." I was already crept out and furious, and I said, "Buy it from the goddamn blood bank, you creep. Go see someone who will help you." And then blocked the door with the knife in his hand and the bag full of cash in another. And he shoved the bag full of money in my hand and said, "It's $100,000. It's all yours, completely. All I want is just a little bit, only 1%. You know it's nothing. It's easy money, you know. 1% for $100,000. I will pay you $100,000 every time you give me just 1% of it." Even though I was creeped out by it, it wasn't a bad deal. By giving him less than 5%, I was set for life. So I took the deal, and he cut me up a little bit and took the blood in a small vodka shot glass. And that is how I got into this weird business deal. I didn't disclose much about the money to everyone for tax reasons and brought it in slowly. Even the rich guy was helping me make the money white. This all started on a Friday, and we did it every Friday. I kept visiting him for the next few weeks and decided that I will stop as soon as I had enough money to leave that boring job and enjoy life with my family. The day came. I quit the job, and it was the last Friday. I met the weird rich man again to tell him that this is the last time, and he can now find someone else for this. I went to him and explained to him that I am leaving and will not be interested in his proposals anymore. At first, he got really angry and tried to persuade me to continue our business. My mind was set, so he agreed and decided to do it one last time. I agreed, and he brought out the knife I brought for him the very first time we met. He asked me, "Can I drink it raw for the last time, directly from your hand?" We already had crossed the boundary of normal, so I agreed to this. He started drinking and got carried away and bit me. I pushed him away and he apologized. It was enough. I was about to leave. He then asked me to wait and said that he will bring out the money. I said it was okay and I will let it slide, but he insisted. So I stayed. I would not let another opportunity to make money let go. He then brought out a bag and asked for one last drop. A little bit of blood was still coming from the hand where he stabbed me to get the blood out. I let him, and he came in slowly and gently licked the blood. And as I was distracted a bit, he forcefully bit me. And as he did, a rush of intense pain through me. I was in pain, and I was in anger. I tried to push him, but he won't stop biting my hand. I started punching him continuously. He tried blocking them, and then from the hand that he was hiding behind, he took the knife and stabbed me in the leg. And as he stabbed me, I fell down on my knees because I was in pain. The pain from his furious bite and the stabbing. Seeing me down, he looked at me and stabbed me in my throat. As he stabbed me in the throat, the blood started oozing out of the veins, and he kept his mouth near so as to drink every bit. And then he started continuously stabbing me everywhere and biting me and drinking blood. He wasn't holding back as I was lying there dead and cold. Like a beast, he went on to tear every part of the flesh of my body and drink and lick every drop of my blood. My body was ravaged by a beast that was really a human. A man of his word, he did send my family a bag full of cash. A human body holds up to 10 units of blood, and so, being the man of his word, he sent my family $10 million. So this happened about 10 years ago in Minnetonka Springs, Colorado. I was living in a friend's trailer on her couch, and there was a very limited space, and I was looking for a place of my own. I ran into this guy that lived a few trailers down from her, and he was telling me that he was looking out to rent part of his trailer. So I went over to take a look. This guy seemed really off and creepy sort of way, but at the time, I was really desperate to give my friend her living room couch back and get out of there, so I was willing to go pretty much anywhere. When I went over there, he told me that he'd rent out a small space inside of this ridiculously small trailer, or he was willing to rent out a small copy that he had underneath his trailer that he also showed me. It looked like to be about 10 by 10 crawl space under his trailer. This alone should have been the red flag that made me turn him down flat. But like I said, I was pretty desperate, and that red flag was one of many to come. So I hesitantly and very reluctantly agreed to rent this small space inside and move my stuff over that night. Almost immediately started going on about curfew I'd have to abide by if I was to live there, and a bunch of other nonsense that I wasn't about to sit and listen to. So I left. When I came back, I found him sprawled out on his front porch, mumbling about how he had just taken a bunch of pills and holding half-empty bottle of booze in his hand. I had to step over him to get in the door as he began screaming about how I hadn't minded his warning about my new curfew. At this point, I flat out told him that I was going to be paying him money to stay there. I would be coming and going as I please, since I'm an adult, not a child, and certainly not his child. To this, he reacted by having quite the outburst of rage, at which point I was sure that this was not going to work. He then gets up and starts flinging my stuff out onto the street, and this is all happening at like 2 in the morning. So I gather what belongings are still left in his house and take them outside with me while they continue to gather what he's already thrown out and go begging my friend to let me come back into her trailer, and she let me. But that's not where the bizarre story ends. A few days after this happens, I see a young girl at his house, and they're both getting drunk, and I didn't think much of it. But about a week after, once I had found another place to stay, my friend that lived in that trailer park called me panicking, asking if I was okay. After I got her to calm down, some of the shorter than I was fine, I asked her what made her even ask to begin with. She tells me that they had just pulled a human body from the little cubby under the guy's trailer that had been there for several days. She told me that the guy that lived there had been arrested for trying to rob a convenience store with a machete, and the girl's body had stashed under the trailer and began to smell. So the landlord called the police. The young girl I'd seen him drinking with just a few days beforehand was found wrapped in a quilt under his trailer. All that was running through my mind as she was telling me all of this was that would have been me had I not left when I did. I didn't step foot in that trailer park again. Even going anywhere near it gave me the creeps so bad I couldn't stand the thought of going anywhere close for years afterwards. And as badly as I found for that young girl, I was still very thankful that I walked away from there with my life.